Shall I give you another quote?
Mm-hmm.
Money is the hydraulic fluid of Satan's bulldozer. And another one, if you can't do anything for fun, you may as well be dead. That was Hemingway.
Could you share some thoughts on all these years living in community?
It's been it's been essential. Like if I would have been by myself, I'd be dead or I'd be gone. It wouldn't have worked. You got to have, like, people can only function within a community, and it doesn't have to be all on one piece of land. Like, you can have friends, but you need to be in a situation where you regularly interact with people, or else you just go crazy. And there's all kinds of benefits in being in a community, like work bees, or getting help with something, or looking after the kids, or cooking meals. It's necessary. You got to have community. And if you don't, then you have to take some kind of medication to function. Which I'm doing anyways, but it's homegrown medication, so that's all right. In elementary school, one of the guys in the school, I think he was a class above me, he showed me how you connect a light bulb to a battery. I was 6, you know.
Nice.
And it's like, whoa! All of a sudden, the whole world opened up for me.
Yeah.
So I've been playing with that stuff ever since. And then when I was 9, we moved to a house where next door there was an electrotechnic business where they repaired stuff and sold stuff, and their garbage was like a gold mine. There was all kinds of great stuff in there. Batteries and motors and switches and transformers and all kinds of stuff. And in those days it was okay, nobody cared about how poisonous things were. Yeah, like I had some 12-volt history because I had been living in cars, or in vans. I knew a little bit of switches and lights and things like that. And then when I moved here, we were using kerosene lanterns, and they were terrible. They were stinky and dangerous and hot.
Everything,
And they were just messy business. So I thought we can do better than that. So then I put in a few little electric lights, you know, like taken out of old cars. With a battery, and then we would drag the battery over to the neighbors, get it charged up, and then drag it back. And it was a pain, you know. Like, and I thought, well, maybe like a windmill. Because I had been in my youth. I had been toying with windmills. Like, I made little toy windmills out of old bicycles that didn't charge anything, but one of them had a bicycle headlight on it that would actually, in high winds, would shine, you know. So I had a little bit of experience with that. And then I thought, okay, I better get serious here with the windmill. So I got books. It's called Making Electricity from Wind, Water, and Sunshine. And it was a fantastic book. It completely covers everything. Like, you got to turn your brain on, you know, and like figure things out. But all the essential information is there about how to twist the blades on the wind. How to calculate the twist. How to calculate RPMs in that book. And so, like, then with that book in hand, I started designing, and then I bought a nice piece of Sitka spruce wood in Winnipeg, carved the blades out of, and I carved 3 blades. So then we stood it all up and put the windmill on top. And it worked right off the bat, you know, 10 amps.
Wow.
That was a glorious moment. So then we set up a shelf in the main house there with battery clamps hanging off of it, you know, with diodes in it, so people could bring their battery and hook it up to their battery and fill it up and take it back home. We didn't have to take it so far away, it was all right here. That went on for a while, but then people started getting solar panels. I got my first solar panel in '85. That was it. No more hauling the batteries, you know. Like we were already being super stingy with the power, because if you have to drag your battery, you're not going to run it dead right away.
Yeah.
And so, like, the solar was completely adequate for like the particular stingy method that we had.
Yeah.
And then I got more solar panels and things got better and better.
Yeah.
And everybody else was getting solar panels too. So then that first windmill, nobody was using it anymore. It was a prototype. It was designed to work, and it did. But fixing it was very tricky, and it was not perfectly aligned. So like the thing chewed up belts. So once a year, I had to replace the belt. It was a $9 belt. It wasn't a big deal. But the big deal was you had to take the propeller off while dangling from some little harness up
Right.
at the top of a pole. And so like we found volunteers for it for a few years, but then nobody wanted to do it anymore.
Who wants to do the windmill belt?
And then I asked if I could give it away, and then I thought, oh, now we can do better, So then I built that platform. There's a round platform out of a bale feeder, so you can actually work on the windmill standing on your feet with the tools by your side,
Yeah.
And then we made a telescoping pole that telescopes into the tower, so you can bring the machine right down to the deck and work on it, and then crank it up again. And that's what's there now.
Oh.
And it's been there since '93, so that's not bad for a windmill, we put a different propeller on it, but the generator is still the original. But now what the windmill does mostly is it powers 4 of the houses as backup power. So like it's a 3-phase machine, high voltage, 120 volts. You can also run it quite a ways without losing a lot because it's such a high voltage. So like it's got wires going to 4 of the houses, and then at each of the houses there's a 3-phase transformer with a rectifier to charge batteries. Typically people get like 10, 15, 20 amps from that.
Huh.
This box is on its last legs. There's only 2 more teeth on it, Oh, 4 more. Okay, there's some better paper.
There you go. Torch it.
Yeah, I use this to light my stuff in my house. You point it down and
Exactly.
fantastic. Want me to show you the cold room?
Yes.
Okay, this is the cold room. It's very well insulated. It has double insulation in the walls,
Yeah.
and it has a couple of vents going into the house. So as long as I keep my house heated,
Yeah.
this will stay warm. And then originally I put in a fancy system with motorized vents and thermostats, to manage the temperature in here.
Yeah.
And then we had a lightning strike and fried all the electronics.
Really?
And then I found out that you don't even need that. Like it's self-regulating to a large extent. Like the colder it gets, the faster the heat flows in.
Sure.
So like now I just have the vents set at a little crack and it works fine. There's the return, cold air return, and then so it comes into the house and it gets heated up by the stove, and then it goes into the other room. It comes back up through there, and it's always above freezing in there, but yet it's never hot.
Yeah.
Here's the vent. It's closed now, but this is the vent that comes from the house, and I have that a little bit open. And there's the cold air return, and I have that a little bit open too. And then it just works. I still have the system in place. I just don't use it anymore.
Oh, okay.
So this is like a little windshield wiper motor made into a winch, that can wind up a string, But let's go to the greenhouse. This is the greenhouse, and like here you cannot get away with self-regulating temperature. Here you have to have an active system because it can heat up really fast in the sun. So like there's vents on this greenhouse to keep it cool, and they work with 2 thermostats, one for open and one for close. And then there is a motor that winds up. So now it's closing them.
Closing what?
The vents. Oh, yeah, it's a good thing we're here because I just noticed we have a problem here. This hasn't happened for the longest time. But one of the strings came off. Now they're opening again. I gotta do something about the string. It's not in the right place, but I'll attend to that later.
Oh, it's how he chooses.
I want to make one of those.
And so this automatically keeps the temperature within a few degrees in here, you know, like when it gets warm in the morning it opens, and but one interesting feature, like what happens is if you just make it all the way, then it opens, it gets too cold, it closes, it gets so hot.
You just have to do a little.
So you got to go really slow. And how I solve that problem is by putting a timer on it. So it's got this timer on it that operates the system for 5 seconds every 5 minutes.
Okay.
And that does it, you know? Like they never fly up and down, they just slowly open and slowly close. Works really well. And that timer has been there for 25 years.
Where did you get the timer from?
I made it. It's a 555 chip.
What?
It's just an electronic part. Like, it cost $3 to build that. You know?
Oh. Okay then.
So, in the winter,
Okay.
because it's vertical, you know, and like it's south facing and there's no leaves in the trees, this is an excellent source of heat.
Yeah.
So what I got here is I got a switch that I can switch it to the winter mode, and then the same system works a motorized vent, except the string came off. I gotta put it back on. Works a motorized vent, so like when it when it gets warm in here, it'll open, and then when it cools off in the evening, it closes again, so you don't lose the heat.
Cool.
Could you tell us how you order food, or like do you go to the grocery store once a week, or what? Like what do you store in your cooler and all that?
Well, I don't go to the grocery store every week. I probably go every 2 weeks or so, you know, because like I don't really enjoy going to town. And a lot of the food is grown here, especially in the summer. And like there's carrots and beets and potatoes in the root cellar. And I got canned meat and canned beans, you know, so like a lot of the stuff is produced here or bought in bulk. You know, like we used to do, we haven't done one lately, but we used to do these huge food orders where we buy $4,000 worth of food, you know, for everybody.
Yeah.
And then you put that in your cold room, and like I got enough food in there to go for a year for sure. You don't need to go to the store because you got it already. It's not as convenient, you know. You have to cook it first, but it's there. It's 300 watts regular output,
Right.
but you can crank it up to 600 for 15 minutes before it gets too hot.
Okay.
So you can run, I got a blender
Yeah.
that draws 600,
Yeah.
but you don't only use that for a minute, so that's not a problem at
Yeah.
all. And right now it's powering the internet radio,
Right.
nothing else.
Well, tell us about having internet out here.
Having internet, well, I got this tower in the yard, like a 45-foot tower, and the internet company put one of their radios on top, and then I got a cable coming into the house, and I run the system off my solar system. Yeah, I got a router, and like it reaches far enough that other people have repeaters at their house, and they can use it too, you know. So it's about 4 or 5 people that can actually use it. When you close the lid and there's no shock absorber, then it slams down and it makes everyone crazy. But I made out of a Canadian Tire bicycle pump, I made a
Sweet.
dashpot, I guess. Like, what happens is that because it's such a small house, it's a big stove, most of the time.
I'm seeing a plastic lid for a coffee mate and a light switch.
Yeah, there's a little switch in there. When you hit that little paddle,
Yeah?
and the light comes on for a minute, and then it goes off again. You climb up the ladder, you can do it with your elbow, and then you have light.
Hit it with your elbow.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about turning it off again, because by the time you're in bed, it'll turn off. You know?
Did you put it on a timer? 1 minute timer?
Yeah. Certain skills and certain desires, then you just come up with these things. You know, yeah, but like, because it's like it costs nothing to put that together, you know.
Tell us about your towel rack as a
Yes.
light switch.
Yeah, so like the saddle rack is mounted so that it can move, you know, it's like a little loose on the screws.
It's a little loose on the screws.
Like the end, so it can move up and down. And then behind the top of this one, there is a little micro switch. So when you go like that, you turn on the micro switch, and that charges up a capacitor in that box there. And then that, with the transistor, keeps that light on for a few minutes, and then it goes off by itself. And it fades away quite beautifully. These people moved here, and they came with 2 children, and they had a black and white 12-volt TV. But they found out pretty quickly, like, this was in the days before LEDs, eh? There was all these car lights in the house, you know, and pretty energy intensive, and they didn't have enough, like, they were tight on power, and watching TV was not encouraged. The children wanted to watch TV, so I thought, well, what if we build something that they can pedal, that they can power their TV with? So I did. I built a little thing that you could sit on and pedal, and then as long as you pedaled, there was TV. And it's amazing. It only took 2 weeks, and then they never watched TV again. Yeah, the wine is not bad, really. Eh? Like
It's got a kick.
I don't remember. I think it must be at least 5 or 6 years old. Probably
Great.
7.
It's got a bit.
Wow. Can you tell us what the bathroom situation is like at Northern Sun Farm?
We got outhouses, and there's a bucket in the outhouse with a toilet seat on top. And then there's a variety of strategies to deal with it. I pour some water in the bucket beforehand. Other people use leaves, you can do that too. And when you're done, you gotta walk with the bucket of shit and dump it in a worm bin. And that seems to be the major obstacle that civilized people have to struggle with. Nobody wants to walk with a bucket of shit. But yet, that's what it takes. Like, if you do that, if you walk with a bucket of shit and you put it in a worm bin, and you could put a worm bin really close to your outhouse, but you can't put it under your outhouse because then you can't work with the worms. It has to be separate.
Because of the urine?
Well,
Drowns them?
Yeah, that's one thing. You don't want to piss in a worm bin because it will kill them. So the bucket works really well. And then the worms eat it and turn it into black dirt that you can just use. It's cheap. You can get set up for $100. Yeah, it's extremely dependable. There's no risk of contaminating the groundwater. There's no septic system required.
Yeah.
It's cheap, you know. There's no plumbing involved. It's all just plywood and aluminum and plastic. And we've been doing it since '93. So, if you have a pit latrine and 20 people shit in it, and there's a pump like 30 feet away from it, you may very well run into problems. Yeah.
What is the problem with the typical outhouse?
The pit latrine. You're talking about a pit latrine, like with a typical hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works great for occasional use. We got a couple of those by the community center. Because if you shit in them like 10, 15 times in a year, it's not a problem at all. It decomposes. But if you go faster than those things can keep up with, then it can get very nasty. And then you're also then you're looking at risks to the groundwater. Like here, the amount that goes in there is so small that it all dries up, you know, because it's under a roof, so it doesn't get wet, you know, so it all dries up and decomposes.
Do you see worms being able to solve the toilet situation in cities in some way?
There is no solution to the problem in cities. You could theoretically do it, but you have to completely redesign the cities. You know, like every house would have to have a dedicated worm bin. You're looking at like massive infrastructure. You're talking about thousands upon thousands of pounds of worms, and then it would only work if every individual takes responsibility for themselves. Then it would work. But if you rely on the handle to flush, then forget it. You know? Yeah. And people aren't going to do it. They're going to keep flushing because it's so convenient.
There's also something else that you do differently at Northern Sun Farm, and that's use water and not
yeah.
toilet paper.
That's right, yeah. In 1972, I remember it to the day. In 1972, I was parked in front of the pudding shop in Istanbul. And Sultan Ahmed, I think it was called. There was a square there, you know, where all the hippies parked their vans. And the best place to shit was in the pudding shop. People told me. So I went to the pudding shop, take a shit, with no toilet paper. But there was a tap on the wall and a tin can. So I thought, oh, that's how you do it. So I tried it out. Oh, fantastic, you know.
Isn't it?
I haven't used toilet paper since, to
Yeah.
this day.
Yeah.
That was it, no more toilet paper.
Yeah.
Because once you learn how to use water, toilet paper just corrodes. Like if you do dishes, would you use toilet paper? No, you would use water.
Yeah.
And so I made lots of converts over the years, and I think the majority of people here probably now uses water, although I wouldn't know for sure. But I haven't asked, but I would assume that. Have you tried water?
I've been converted. You converted me since.
Good.
I convert others.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you go to the Canadian Tire store and it's a whole fucking wall of toilet paper.
Different, I know.
And how much?
There's
Yeah.
so much variety. It's ridiculous.
It changed my life.
Yeah.
Washing, and if you had shit on your face, would you wipe it off or wash it off? And that got me. Like,
Or on your knee.
anywhere. If there's poo anywhere on you, it's being washed off.
Yeah, no matter how much
Yeah,
toilet
like
paper
it's-
you use, you still have to wash it after.
And in today's world, it's really easy to do. Like if you're in some urban environment, you want to take a crap, you just go into a restaurant, ask for a takeout cup, go to the bathroom, fill it up with water, and
Yeah.
they're all done.
Could you talk about the history of the wells here and the water situation from the land?
Yeah. So when I came here, we had
You're being a muppet.
a well down by the dugout that was like just round tiles sunk into the ground, with like basically a hole in the ground that you could lower a bucket into and get water that way. And there was also dead critters floating in it.
And what year was that?
That was in 1979. And then, so we pumped it out a bunch of times, you know, with the gas-powered pump, and then it seemed, and fished out the dead critters, and it seemed reasonably clean. So we've been using that for a while. And also, there was an artesian well about 4 miles from here. So sometimes we had an old pickup truck, we'd load up barrels in the back of the pickup truck,
Yeah.
drive to the artesian well, fill them up, that worked too. But then in 1980, we got a well put in by the main house, a drilled well. So then we had a source of water. And we pumped that out with the gas-powered pump. It was horrible. But it worked. And
It was
then,
horrible.
Yeah, like it stinks and you gotta fuck around with gas and oil. Worry about it not freezing and but it worked. And then in 1984, we bought this Monarch, one of the last ones they ever made, hand pump, you know, and we installed it. It's still there, still making water. When I moved here to this site here in '85, Mike and I augured down in the hole behind my house because I was already 5 feet lower than the ground. So I thought, okay, 5 feet ahead of the game there, you know. So started augering with a homemade auger, and we got deep enough that there was water. And then I bought a sand point at a plumber's place in Winnipeg. We found out that the silt that we have here goes right through the slits in the sand point, so we had to wrap it in cloth. So we wrapped it in cloth and then wound it up with bale twine. We held it all in place. And
That
we
still works
stuck
like
that in the hole,
Oh, okay.
and it's still making water. Still there.
Okay.
Still works.
Huh. Good
And
to
then
know.
later, the next well to go in was over at Don's place. And then I had heard about this washdown method, you know, where you use water pressure to get into the ground.
Okay.
And so I bought a washdown point. It was $20, I think, you know, and it's a little plastic thing that has a ring of teeth on the bottom.
Okay.
And then there's an outlet with a ball valve in it.
Yeah.
And the ball valve, when it rises, it closes it.
Yeah.
and then there's a hose fitting inside of it that you can put a hose onto. And so like we assembled this 20-foot piece. It was more than 20 foot, like 25 feet I think we had, like a 25-foot piece of 2-inch pipe.
Yeah.
And then we glued a threaded fitting on the bottom and threaded on first the sand screen and then the washdown point of the end. And before you assemble it, you have to attach the hose because you can't get out afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's just friction fit, the hose. It's like afterwards you can pull it out.
Yeah.
And then we augered down to get past the rocks, and we went into the sand and we augered down with a hand auger.
Yeah.
With some extensions on it until we hit water at about 10 feet.
Yeah.
And then you can't auger anymore because it starts caving in on you.
Yeah.
And then you take this, by now it's 30 foot long, you stand it up in the air. It's kind of hairy, but it's doable. Set it in the hole. So now it's only 20 feet up in the air. Hook it up to the water supply, a couple of barrels of water, fire up the gas-powered pump, and you just push it into the ground.
Whoa.
It just pushes into the ground until you're all the way down, and then you shut off your pump, and there's your well.
And that stays down there, that mechanism. Oh,
yeah, and then you pull the hose out, but then the ball in the ball valve goes up and seals it so you don't get sand coming in.
Whoa, I never heard of that. What's that called, that thing?
A washdown point.
Washdown point.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are talking about Northern Sun Farm where they made a homemade well for $100.
Yeah, that includes the pump.
Including the pump, because the pump was made of
The weapon board. Oh, that was an interesting evolution. At first, when I had this little well in the back, that had really nice water in it, but I had to figure out a way to get it out. And it wasn't that far down, so you could actually suck it out, you know? After you primed it, you could suck it from the top.
Yeah.
So I built this little pump, a very simple pump. And it was connected to a windshield wiper motor. So the windshield wiper motor would go like this, and then the rod would do this, you know, inside the pipe. And it worked. It totally worked. It made water. But then I wanted something that I could use in the winter as well. Because this system freezes in the you can't use it in the winter. So then I did the same kind of approach, except I used a little piece of copper pipe at the end of a 1-inch hose, and then a 1/2-inch hose inside of the 1-inch hose.
Okay.
And at the end of the 1/2-inch hose, there is a leather disc that slides around in the metal pipe. Same with the windshield wiper motor at the top, and that works like a charm too. Like there's one over at Dawn's that's been there since 97, I think. Oh, it's still running. Yeah, we still have one like that. We still have a few like that. Dawn's got one. There's one by the community center, and Tim has one in his yard.
How many wells are there today?
9, I think. We got 3 drilled wells too. That's included. I got a drilled well there, 300 foot down.
300.
Foot down. That's how far they have to go to get to the water. You know?
Whoa.
Because like you can get water much higher, but then you don't get the reliability. And this was in the year that all the wells were going dry. So like I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to stop at like shallow because then there's no guarantee there. And so then we kept going, and then we got into the clay. You can only go as far as the clay. Go lower than the clay, it doesn't help because you don't get water. But I was talking to the guys, and what happened? Like, what's below the clay? And it's up at limestone. You can get water in the limestone. So how much clay is there? Maybe 60 feet. So I said, okay, go for it. So they went down, 60 feet, more clay. At 180 feet, they hit limestone. And then they went into the limestone, and then it took another 120 feet into the limestone before they finally hit a fissure.
Oh.
Because you got to hit a fissure, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like now it's 300 foot down, it'll never run out of water. It's good. It's reasonably good water. It's got a bit of iron in it, but for gardens and animals, it's just fine.
Does anyone drink rainwater here?
No. Why would I? I got perfectly good water coming out of my little well. You
Yeah.
could drink rainwater, but like I don't really trust rainwater because because of industrial pollution. You know, whereas
Really?
the stuff that comes out of the ground has been filtered. You know, been clean.
Filtered by the ground. You drink water from the ground here?
Oh, all the time.
Unfiltered?
All the time, yeah. That's all I drink.